Good morning, folks. So, in continuation with health and wellness series, today I'm going to be talking about something that happens to all humans and for which we always asked. Why is it that people remember more of negative experiences more than the neutral or the positive ones? So, we're going to talk about that, the role of evolution, how the brain processes negative information, why it does that, and what are some ways you can tackle that even if you can't completely obliterate it, right? That is, you can't turn it off, right? So I'm going to talk about that. So you would have obviously seen, right? Generally, people tend to remember and recall more of their negative experiences than the neutral or positive ones. It could be in any close relationships, friendships, marital, non-marital, etc. So people generally try to recall, oh, you said this that day, you hurt me that day, etc. And even otherwise, even as an individual, even if you're not in a relationship, you tend to remember and recall these incidences much more lucidly and in a clear manner than the positive ones, right? So, I mean, this just, if you're thinking you're being weak by thinking that way, when people say you think negative, it's not true. It's just evolution and a combination of biology, right? That's the way it is. So, we're going to go a little deeper into that. Now, the question that most people will have, obviously, is why do we do that, right? Now, I think I've said this in most of my previous podcast as well. Not that a lot of people watch it, but yeah, the brain's top priority is your survival. It doesn't care about anything else. It has only two modes: survival mode, reward mode, right? But survival mode takes higher precedence or priority compared to your reward mode, right? That is a pleasure seeking part. Now, when I say survival mode, it just wants to avoid any threats or dangers that can even remotely affect your life or chances of living, right? So it just wants to keep you alive and to help you reproduce so that you can move on. Your journey in the world is over and then you can move on, right? Because you already had an offspring. And yeah, so that's one of the reasons your positive experiences are great. It's good for you. The happiness, the purpose, and other things are great for you, but they're not really essential for your survival. Whereas negative experiences can actually kill you, right? It kind of stresses you, it burns the things within your body, your organs get a little overstressed. A lot of things happen that you wouldn't really want when you have more negative experience. So the main then treat brain, sorry, not main. The brain treats them as higher priority and gives them and makes you remember and recall it more. So that's about it. So let's look at it. So this is also called as negativity bias. That's how, let's say, psychologists and evolutionists document it, and it's a function of uh, let's say, function of evolution. That's what you can say. Now, you might say, okay, why does it, how is it tied to evolution, for example, right? So, eating a poisonous plant or a berry or something is nearly death, or a snake or an animal is near death. But forgetting to eat an apple or kissing someone was just fine, right? You could just live with it, but this meant death. So the brain eventually evolved, and obviously you lived in very tough environments with insects, rodents, snakes, animals, braving nature, weather. Something could fall on you. You never knew. You always had to be watchful in terms of staying alive. So that obviously meant that the perception of for people, both men and women, was more oriented towards perceiving threats around you than actually looking at, oh, let's go in a corner and uh, do something fun so that we'll be happy. No, that was not the reason, right? So evolution eventually made sure that you were more attuned, or let's say more sensitive, like how women are more. Great. I got disconnected. I'm back. So yeah, we're talking about attunement of the brain. We'll just get to that again. Yeah, cool. So yeah, so just like women are like more neurotic, or also remember their threat senses and perceptions is much more than men, right? So that way the humans evolved to analyze and process threats much better, and that's the evolutionary reason that we are more um, let's say you have to, you just to survive, you have to recall this much better, and it kind of plays has a higher weight. Criticisms, fears, dangers, events, negative events in your life takes higher precedence than positive or neutral ones. So this is normal and natural. You don't have to worry too much about it. Now, coming to the next point four, you might want to know what parts of the brain are involved. This for the more, let's say, studious ones or the curious ones. If you want to know a little bit about how the brain stores them and what parts of the brain are involved, so we'll talk about it. Now, there are two main brain systems that are involved in threat perceptions and negative memories, right? One is amygdala. It's like the alarm system. It detects the negative events, fills the brain with your cortisols and adrenals and other chemicals that are required, and makes the memory sharper and more emotional. Now, this is the part that is trying to associate context in terms of time, place, location, people involved. The episodic memory, as they call it, right? This is the part that plays a crucial role in it. And then it works very closely with a beautiful part of the brain called hippocampus, where these things are stored as episodic memories, right? Stores the negative events as episodic memories in the hippocampus. Now, hippocampus, once it is stored, it is like almost, training. Okay, this has happened, make him remember it more often, right? So it replays them more often and strengthens it through repetition. Now, of course, hippocampus also then plays a role in that certain things getting stored as a habit, but that is for basal ganglia. We'll not get into that. But fundamentally, if you see, this is getting strengthened with repetition, which aligns with any habit formation technique, right? So this basically it's telling you something is wrong. These are the list of negative experiences that you've had, and these things affected you. It affected your quality of life. It affected your health span. It might put you in danger. Don't do that. So I'll keep replaying it till you know that you know how to avoid these memories. So that's the main reason hippocampus also get involved. That's why your traumas, love breaks, maybe your some wrong things that you've done when you're young, or someone who wronged you in the past, all of the heartbreaks, job losses, financial pressures, let's say your business partner cheating on you, taking money away and running. What else? Bunch of these things, a bad accident, for example. uh, yeah, about all of these things, fights, etc., that you've had. It kind of it's stored as episodic memory, and it is marked as like important, like just like you mark it in on a folder, right? This is start, this is important, this is my favorite. Like that, these things are stored as important so that it can be retrieved much faster and in a much more cleaner way. That is why it has to be stored as episodic memory to give you more context. Okay, so we discussed amygdala and hippocampus. I will talk a little bit more about hippocampus a little while down the line. Stay tuned. There's a third part of the brain that is involved, which plays a beautiful role in your life. That is your prefrontal cortex. But we'll come to hippocampus and also prefrontal cortex a little later. Now, coming to brain, generally people would have told you, right? The emotional brain is much older and much more well developed than your newer brain. The newer brain is your prefrontal cortex, etc., which helps you to logically think, etc. But the emotional brain, which is coming from the base of your spine to the stem, base of the brain, etc., that is your old brain, which has been around for much longer than the thinking part of the brain. That's one reason people say most of the marketing is aimed at triggering your emotion so that you develop that impulse to buy something rather than making you think. Because when you start thinking, it goes off. Ultimately, there's some research to say that even 95% of things that we buy or decisions that we take is actually emotional. And then we try and buttress that with a logical argument so as to not make us look stupid to ourselves. Anyway, that's a different topic. Now, in terms of brain, coming back to the brain, it doesn't even understand the big difference between real danger and imagined or perceived danger. So, a story or a bad memory or a headline or an argument replaying in your mind of the past or a sad movie that makes you cry, imagined failures, potential loss of something that could happen in the future, a divorce or a job loss, or you being on the street, or you getting crushed by a train. All of these things trigger the same amount of pain and stress that which didn't really happen, but it's almost triggered the same kind of reaction in your amygdala and your brain, right? That is why things like nightmares, or negative news that comes around, it spikes your anxiety, because emotions react much faster and logic comes much later. Now, even they have recorded the time involved. For example, the emotion brain reacts in about 100 to 200 milliseconds, whereas the logical brain reacts much later, saying at about 500 plus milliseconds, right? Now, this is the reason I said most of our decisions are usually emotional. And if you want your cortex to get involved to start taking slightly logical decision, you should learn to cool down and take a pause, take a breath, think over it, stay quiet, and then make sure your amygdala settles down, and then your cortex steps up to start taking those good decisions. Unfortunately, okay, now there are two things around this. I'll tell you the good and the bad part too. The good part, the fortunate part, that is it is doable by everybody. The sad part or the unfortunate part, that it is going to take a lot of time and practice, right? We'll discuss that as well when we come to the retribution part. So now, one question that generally I had and a lot of people also have is, yes, humans are also reward driven. We are also fear avoiders, right? We want to know all the threats so that we could avoid them, and we are also reward driven. Now, you might then think that, okay, there seems to be a conflict in terms of how brain is prioritizing. Now there's no conflict, so the brain basically says, I will prioritize your reward, the things that you actually like, the cravings and your reproductions, to other kind of vagrant indulgences that one has in life. I will help you prioritize all of that only if the fundamental is taken care of. That is, your safety and your survival should be on track. Only then I'll help you even focus on it, right? That's why, for example, stress kills motivation, still shuts down your reproduction system, your digestion system. If you read a little bit about how stress impacts you, you will actually know that, right? It kills your sex drive, motivation, purpose, all kind of reward seekings are pretty much shut down. Your dopamine is powerful, but before that comes your safety in the pecking order or the hierarchy, right? So you should remember this. So this is more about the brain, the parts involved, and which one reacts faster, and how it reacts to perception or imagination versus reality. Which is why people also tell you, don't think negative, but start thinking positive. But yeah, but it's harder than uh, in reality than practice. So a lot of people then let's go to the next section. A lot of people then think, okay, fine, I understand where it is stored, which one comes first. I think negatively quite a bit more than the positive memories, or I have very less positive memories in life. Now I want to change. Looks like I'm fighting biology and evolution. Can I win? Can I overtake? So this is a question that a lot of people might have, quite logical, right? Because nobody wants to keep ruminating, thinking negatively, and going into more uh, stress situations. Why would you want to do that? Now, the again, it has two parts: the good and the bad parts, like I mentioned or alluded to in my previous section. You cannot delete negativity bias because it's fundamental. It is required. You cannot just remove amygdala, right? So as long as you're a human and you go through these experiences, it's going to remain. You won't be able to remove them. It is in fact required. Otherwise, you won't be able to live, right? You won't be able to assess threats pretty well. So what you can do is, but you can weaken it and rebalance the brain. So what are we trying to do? We are trying to say that, okay, I have this amygdala, which is kind of, the threat perceptor, warns me of everything that's going to happen. And then you're saying, I have this logical brain which actually thinks, but I want to activate this a little bit more compared to the amygdala, which is on the pecking order, right? That's what you're actually thinking. Now, then you need to practice, right? So now, which is why God or the brain gave you something called as neuroplasticity, right? There are two things here. I'll also discuss. There is something called as neurogenesis, and then there is something called as neuroplasticity. I will not go deep into it right now because it's not, obviously, not a domain that I want to cover as part of this lecture, nor I'm a expert in this, but I'll give you high level. Now, neurogenesis is generation of new cells in the brain. Neuroplasticity is your rewiring, right? The connections that all these things makes, the dendrites and other connections that it makes between different parts of the cells, that is, or your neurons, that is your neuroplasticity, which we know is now happening in the human still your death. And almost every part of the brain is prone to neuroplasticity, which is the great sign. We'll also discuss some steps that you can do to improve neuroplasticity. Neurogenesis, right? Neurogenesis is creation of new cells. Now, with age in general, you will see that your brain's capacity, capability, your processing power is bound to get a little slow and low over time. That is normal. In fact, people say that parts of the brain, in fact, become smaller. Like, for example, hippocampus becomes smaller over time. And obviously, a lot of bad habits, if people have, it's going to affect the brain such that a lot of cells will die inside the brain in various parts, so that bunch of these things won't really work very well, right? Now, the part where new cells come, the neurogenesis happens in humans in recorded forms in sure short ways only in hippocampus, from what I know, right? Well, also that's why I said hippocampus is special. We'll come to, and it also plays a part in storing those episodic memories and how it functions, right? So it's one of the most beautiful parts of the human brain. So you should read a little more about it. So that's one part of the brain that handles or is prone to neurogenesis, right? Now, every time you have you play a more positive moment, you try and reframe a negative event into less negative. uh, Try and avoid some of those negative energies that come around, or you practice gratitude journaling, etc. Maybe, meditate, close your eyes and meditate, for example. Give yourself those, focus on small purposes in life, focus on the small wins that you had today, things that you are quite grateful for. And everybody has quite a lot of grateful things to feel very happy about, right? But what we are doing purposefully, we want to play victim. We want to look at the negative. Oh, that fellow said like this, my husband said like this, my wife said like this, my mother-in-law treated me badly, my friend in my office screwed me over, somebody broke my heart and ran away. You keep looking at those negative things, and the brain replays. It's a loop because you're telling your hippocampus, oh, this is more important. Replay it again and again. Then it is like, okay, episodic memory. I'll keep replaying that, and go into a kind of a rabbit hole which you don't really want to, right? You want to limit those things. Not that you should forget, it'll never get removed, but it just gets less intense over time, right? That's why people are able to go out of trauma, are prone to, let's say, therapies and treatments with doctors, and they're able to come out of it much better in the long run. Otherwise, everyone will be tied to their heartbreak and the one job loss that they had in their lives, and that's not how we are. So we have those tools to overcome some of those negative episodic memories. Now, you also can train your brain. As I said, there are some positive things too out of everything in life. You should be able to train your brain to make sure your logical brain works better, and also your emotional brain handles those negative emotions much better, right? Now, some of the science backed methods that we have generally seen are kind of labeling or naming your it's called like name to tame it, right? Naming your reactions in the amygdala instantly, right? You should actually call out and say, I'm feeling suffocated. I am feeling upset. I am heartbroken. I am feeling insidious. I'm feeling grateful. I'm feeling lovely and terrific, right? So call out your emotions. That way, the reactions and the sudden fluctuations in the amygdala goes down. And then slowly your logical part starts taking over when you say this. All this looks a little surreal, but that is true. You can read about it if you don't believe me. Second thing, as I said, reduce some of those negative things and things that don't give you any kind of productivity or positivity over time, like doom scrolling, bad newses, toxic discussions with people that you don't like, toxic chats with people. Get yourself into a calmer mind. And to be able to do that, there are a bunch of things that we'll do. We'll discuss that as well as in the next section, right? And try and recall a lot of your positive news and visualize positive things in your life. Like, for example, not necessarily related to money, but yeah, it could be that, oh, you could visualize yourself being the, let's say, the best father in the world or the mother in the world. Or it could be that, gaining two promotions in your company to, or achieving something at work to feel really good about it. And also in the past, right? The things that made you really happy, a job jump or a hike that you got that made you happy, or you solved a great problem for which your entire company or your team was very happy about, you becoming a father, mother, solving some crucial issue for your family or relative, maybe buying whatever it was, right? Try and everybody has those positive moments. Funnily, when I ask people, they don't tell. I don't know why, right? But you should try and replay those positive moments, or also look forward to them in the future. Oh, maybe I'll find a great partner for myself. Maybe I will move to this country and do something wonderful, or I'll grow in this company and become a VP or a CEO, right? Try and solve this complicated problems that will give you a lot of positive feedback loop in life. You should be replaying those moments more often than look thinking negatively all the time, right? Of course, then practicing gratitude and talking to yourself as if you need a bit of care. right? You should talk to yourself like that, not like uh, playing victim all the time. That doesn't really help. And a lot of times people end up ruminating, why did this happen to me? Why did that happen to me, etc. Now, fine, you may, it's just human to think like that. It's biology, so there's nothing wrong about it. Try and limit that, maybe a couple of minutes to 5 minutes a day, and then you should be able to shift to something positive, right? If you can't do that, just pick up the call, talk to somebody, right? Everybody has at least that one or two friend who won't judge you. Pick up the phone and talk to him, right? Do that. If you can't talk, then I have another suggestion. Move. Now, walking, running, gymming, exercise, any kind of physical movement immediately resets your emotional system. You would actually, you have to do it to feel it, right? Now, a lot of people will say, how does gym or running solve my problem? No, it doesn't solve the problem, but it strengthens all this part of the brains that we spoke about. Your, your amygdala, your hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex. I'll come to that quickly, but just accept and understand that a lot of these physical activities, doing good things in life, strengthens a lot of your brain and the processing, right? So keep moving. That's very, very important. Of course, sleep very well, practice a little bit of meditation, etc. 5 to 10 minutes a day, if that really helps. It kind of helps with soothing the amygdala and reduces the hyperactivity that happens there, and improves you to become emotionally stable. You would have seen this, right? Sometimes when you see some people, you will find them to be calm, and you would be wondering, like, how is this person appearing so calm and stable and stoic? Right now, it's not that they were born that way. They all practiced, they all did the fundamentals and the basics right to be able to go there. Now, the good news is anybody can go there. The bad news is it is tough. That much I can tell you, right? It is tough, but it is also possible. So you should go for it. I really wish you do that, right? And like I said, one more tip that I can give is focus on those smaller wins, which will take you out of the negativity grip. And now the thing with this is, you should not say, oh, there is nothing positive in life. You should make that happen. Now, if you don't have any small problems to solve, then your life will hardly change, right? I'm not going to give you some, really feel goody messages in this podcast. The truth is, if you want to feel good, if you want to do something nice, you have to act on it. You cannot just think that I will be wondering for some positive news to come from somewhere. It may not even come. You should make some attempt. Maybe you'll build a new product. It could be like finding a new love, reaching out to someone, talking to him or her, whatever it gives you happiness, right? But it has to be measurable, reasonably measurable output of small wins for which you have to continuously work hard, right? So please keep that in mind. Don't try to shortcut this. These things don't work. Okay. Now, I think I've covered pretty much everything. I told you the summary. You cannot remove negativity bias, it's just part of your brain, but you can only teach your brain to have less impact on you. And slowly, you will teach your brain to not let it dominate you and make your logical part, the prefrontal cortex that is here, you can make that become more dominant over time. So, that is something that you can do. Your brain becomes calmer and lot less negative. I also spoke about neurogenesis, hippocampus, so that's pretty much clear. Now, just from a science perspective, I want to also tell you what are the parts that can be rewired, strengthened, and reorganized with respect to neuroplasticity. These are the list of the parts of the brain: prefrontal cortex, motor cortex, somatosensory cortex, part of the senses, touch, temperature, sun, cold, etc. Cerebellum, basal ganglia, of course, the habit center, which the episodic things then gets rooted as a habit because of repetition, right? Basal ganglia, amygdala, the fear center, visual cortex, auditory cortex, parietal association areas. Now, these are the parts of the brain that can actually be improved or forms new connection through neuroplasticity. So I think that is also thought I should do. Now, just from a completion perspective, I think I've covered everything. What happens, why, what you need to do to get better in life. I think we've done everything. Just one more small angle on hippocampus, which I want you to remember. Since this is the only part that you can hopefully improve and which actually decreases in size over time. Now, hippocampus plays a crucial role in forming new memories, particularly declarative memories, that is, facts and events, and spatial memories, navigating the environment. It converts short term memories into long term ones. See, a process called consolidation, and also helps with emotional and social context by integrating sensory information. with memories before they are stored elsewhere in the brain. It is also involved in flexible use of memories in social and emotional contexts as it is extensively connected to the prefrontal cortex and amygdala. See, now it completes the loop for me. Now, hippocampus, as I've told before, can be strengthened, enhanced in a lot of people just by doing the pillars of wellness. Again, eating good diet, exercising a lot, sleeping well, reducing stress, and having good social connections. If we can do a bunch of these things well, or at least a few of things well, at least the exercise part, here hippocampus literally grows in the size, right? It is shown to grow by 2 to 10% or 2% in people over time if you continuously exercise and keep yourself healthy. Now that's it. You have enough reasons to improve. I hope people can stop ruminating. Of course, you won't, but at least try and do that a little less. Pick up some new habits, pick up something healthy in life, and chase some small purposes in life that you think will help you achieve those small wins to rewire your brain and start thinking more positively. The world needs more positive people like you and not a lot of negativity. And if you need some more help, feel free to just message me. I will help you achieve that. I'll see you again with something more interesting pretty soon. Cheers. And if you like my content, feel free to like, share, which will motivate me to do more better content over time. Thank you.